Good evening and welcome to the January 2018 Morganton Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. I'd like to welcome you folks here tonight, and I'd like to welcome the commission members and wish them a happy new year. Hope they had a great holiday. And another thing today is a special anniversary we have. I bet you couldn't guess it. It's our 3rd year ordinance anniversary. Since this ordinance rewrite in 2015.
That went on the calendar.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
So it has some sticking power, I should say. Okay. Starting out tonight, it was a review of our December 14 minutes. You've had an opportunity to read and review those. Are there any deletions, changes, or additions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion.
Just a minute. I had one there on page 7.
Okay.
Where it said it was stated a growing business in our downtown area, and we're not trying to detour. That should be deter, I think.
Okay.
Detour kind of gives it a different
How
meaning.
far down are we here?
It's about a little more than halfway down.
I see it.
Okay. Is there any other changes or suggested corrections? Hearing or seeing none, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes with the suggested correction.
So moved.
Okay. Item number 2 is a review of our city council action since the last meeting, and I'm sure that's an exciting review.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, on Monday night, this past, City Council met and considered the 2 items that we had on our agenda for the last meeting, which was the rezoning on West Fleming Drive and 605 West Fleming Drive to be exact, and that was considered and was any action was deferred until the next meeting, and the request was that that I contact the applicant and ask him to be present at that next meeting for to give his input and information on the request. So we are in the process of doing that. I have contacted him, and he is considering that and will be getting back with me presently.
Anything else or other questions? Philip, for that? I'm just going to make a point here that in our current ordinance, when it deals with zoning map amendments or changes, that there is a step 2, section D, that talks about the process, and under that process, specific development proposals, they are not to be considered by the staff, the Planning Zoning Commission, or City Council. These entities can only consider the impacts of the proposed zoning district. I'll go back to our meeting in December. I feel that we met the obligation to review the zoning classification and ensure that it adhered to the ordinance as well as our 2030 plan. And in light of the fact that we did not have the applicant's attendance at our meeting, I've also reviewed in our zoning ordinance the process for application. And under steps 5, when the applicant has been approved to present the request to our commission, and under step 7, when the applicant proceeds to have the application approved by City Council, there's nothing in this current ordinance that really addresses the requirement for the applicant's attendance. And I can go back to our December meeting. I certainly left the meeting wishing that we would have had an opportunity to see the applicant and understand what his intents were. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping and would like to make a motion that city staff look to amend the current ordinance, and this is strictly under the zoning map amendments section, and there may be other sections within the ordinance where our administrative process is to take effect, that we use some language such that if the applicant is encouraged or should be present, or if not, then a designated representative, an appropriate representative, be at the meeting, as well as if he needs to go to City Council, that could be elective if answers and questions have been answered here at our level. So any comment or discussion on that, and I'll make that in the form of a motion.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, I've got a second. Any discussion? Pete?
I agree with the encourage. I guess I have some problems with making it mandatory, just because on some of the stuff we handle, I like your wording when you say encourage or, but I'm,
Well, I'm also sensitive, I would say, to the sense of business privacy, that certain businesses like to maintain their privacy until they're ready to really announce and unfurl their colors as to what their intent and true land use is going to be. But our intent and what our responsibility was to address a zoning change and make sure that the HID within that particular zoning classification was going to fit into future land use, that location, which I think we did. We met.
I agree.
So again, I've had a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
I think to encourage or have representation would be ideal. There may be some cases where you have absentee landowners that live outside the area that might put a burden on.
Well, that's why I
To- to
designated the appropriate representative to come and take questions and maybe take them back to that applicant. So, any other comments? Raise the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so staff will take that for action, Philip, and come back to us with some appropriate recommendations.
Okay. The next item that council considered was the amendment to the definitions of microbreweries and wineries. And just to recap what that was, is that we proposed that the definition be changed for a microbrewery and winery, that currently they're allowed in the MID, HID, and EID and CBD zoning districts. And there was no cap or no maximum production on that. And so what we proposed and Planning Commission recommended to council was to put a maximum of 775,000 gallons on there, which is 25,000 barrels. And the reason that is significant is because that's what the definition the state uses, that beyond 25,000 barrels, that a manufacturer has to then enter into a partnership with a third-party distributor. So not that defines what a microbrewery is or whatnot, but it certainly aligns our definition with that. And so then we also provided an exception within the central business district that cap be 1 million gallons, and that also in the central business district there was a previous exception that capacity be 500,000 gallons, and that the allowable amount of space that they had for production was 10,000 square feet. So our recommendation was 12,000 square feet and 1 million gallons. And what that is for is to keep pace with what our projected production is going to be with our the breweries that we have in downtown presently. So as you know, Planning Commission made that recommendation to City Council, and City Council did pass that at the meeting.
Very good, very good. Any comments or questions on that? Okay, moving on. Our next item for tonight is appearances. This is an opportunity in our meeting for those that were here in attendance that would like to address the commission about any planning issues, concerns, suggestions. And if you would like, you're free to come to the podium, give us your name and your address. And seeing none, we will move into the new business for tonight. Under new business, our first and only item is consideration of a proposal that's been submitted by David Clower for alternate design approval, which is related to development of a new car wash to be sited at 815 North Green Street. Philip, would you make your presentation of the staff review of this?
Sir, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, let me go into a little bit further, and let me get to the correct place in the PowerPoint. Okay, so I'll run through the slides here briefly and talk about this. This is the actual. If you see do you see it on your screens?
No.
Greg, if we can put that on their screen.
There we go.
We do now.
You do? Okay. So this is the location and it is on North Green Street, and it is, if you're familiar with North Green Street, which most of you are, this is between G&G Molding and the Gate service station. And so that is showing the proximity. This is the future, or actually the zoning map, showing that it is in the River District overlay. That's the purple hatched area. Let me get the laser pointer. So this is the purple hatched area is the River District overlay, and then the property is zoned HID. These are the utility maps, which don't come into play too much in this case. And you can see that there is approximately 20 to 21,000 cars per day per the 2016 average daily traffic count map. And the future land use is general commercial / retail, according to the 2030 Mission 2030 plan. Okay, and this is I'll leave this up here for a moment. This is the site plan as proposed, and then I'll go over the application with you. The proposal is for a car wash to be built on the project site in a way that meets the intent of the zoning ordinance and the operational requirements of this type of business. And the application has been made as a result of discussions between staff and the applicant. Under points to consider, I would tell you that Section 2.2.7 of our code is the section in the administrative section of our code that deals with alternative design proposals. And essentially what it says is that the City Council may approve alternative design or alternate design proposals that differ from the requirements of Article 4 of this ordinance in regards to landscaping, parking, infrastructure, or building design due to unique site circumstances or creative design proposals, provided that the intent to this ordinance is met. And then it further goes on and it says that the Planning and Zoning Commission shall review the proposal and recommend approval with conditions, or denial of the proposal by simple majority of those present and voting. And that the Planning and Zoning Commission shall include with its recommendation a written statement regarding the consistency of the request with the comprehensive plan and other adopted city plans and policies and the surrounding area. So that's just the background surrounding your decision and what you have to consider. And so the request that we have is in two areas, and that is in the building design and also the site design of the requirements. In the building design section, the request is related to windows and glazing, and I'll come back to that, to the layout in just a moment. Okay. So the windows and glazing, the plans, when we reviewed the plans did not indicate that there was glazing incorporated into the designs. And in our ordinance, the glazing is defined as a glass surface. And it's required to have a minimum of 30% and a maximum of 55% of the wall area to be glazed. And so that was one of the areas that they needed to look at in their application, which is attached. And they state, and I'll let them state when they make their presentation, why they believe that this meets the intent of that section. And then the orientation of certain features, and I'm sorry, let me back up. This is the proposal for the car wash, and I'll get into that in just a moment. I'll get into the building design and its compliance with our code. I feel like that it is compliant in most areas of our code, with a couple of exceptions. Some that the ones that are in front of you are the ones that the applicant felt like that they couldn't amend or work with due to the operation of their business, if that's a fair statement. So, the orientation of the building, which is under section 48611, subsection A, states that buildings shall be oriented in a manner that drive-through windows, menu ordering areas, and automobile service bay doors are not directly visible from the primary fronting street when viewed at a point in the street that is directly perpendicular to the center of the primary facade. And then, again, they have included in their application why they feel like that is something that that they are unable to accommodate due to the operation of their business. And let me go back. So if you see the site plan, this is North Green Street, and their plan does show compliance in this area with the street yard requirements. Shows that the building would be located, and when we go back to the facade, you'll see that these are the service bay doors. These are the service bays where you would pull in to wash your car. These are the manual ones. And then over here are two of the automatic ones. And this center space is the mechanical room that is used to operate all of the machinery that's necessary for the car washing. And then the circulation would be through this ingress and egress point around the building and then through the car wash. And then there are also these points right here and here are the vacuum stations. So in our recommendation, what we looked at is that what we wanted to just kind of bring out is that this is a property that is located along a major arterial in a highly visible corridor in the River District. It has the opportunity to accomplish the goals of promoting and protecting the aesthetic value of the River District as contemplated in the Mission 2030 plan. And to accomplish this role, the alternative design proposal is to construct a building that is compliant with the River District Overlay Zoning District, but requires special consideration because of the nature of the business being proposed for the site. It is compliant in most other areas of the code. Again, there's a couple that we're still working on, and that's part of the dialogue between staff and the applicant that that we work on in getting compliance and resulting eventually in a notice to proceed. And then we looked at it, and just as a matter of operation, we looked at it, and there are ways that this building could fit on the property and be compliant. It's just, and again, they'll address this, but it just has to do with how their business operates and how they feel that it needs to be oriented in a different manner. But again, we would like to reemphasize the parts of the code that you have to take into consideration, and those are that you have to have unique site circumstances or a unique design proposal, and that you have to make a statement of how this is in compliant with the 2030 code.
Thank you, Philip. Any questions for Philip at this time? Okay. Let's open the public hearing, and we'd like to take anybody's comments that would like in the audience to address in favor or against this proposed development.
You guys want to make any?
That include us.
That would include you. And if you would, give us your name and your address for our records, please.
My name's Jesse Plaster. I'm the architect. I'm based out of Lenoir. My home address is Holly Lodge Place in Lenoir.
Well, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all having us. And I appreciate what y'all are doing with the River Overlay District. I think, you're taking some good steps to ensure the continued progress of that district and the aesthetic character of the district. I think all of these are good measures. We've had a great working relationship with Philip and the planning staff. I feel like this is, we've just got a unique type of business that's kind of like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and I feel like that's where the alternative compliance process really comes into play. Just the nature of the business, the areas where we're asking for a variance are, number one, the glazing, and number two, the orientation of the business. Glazing, of course, it's an open, self-serve car wash, a couple of automatic bays and 4 self-serve bays. We looked at glazing. We've talked a lot about it. The reality of the situation is, people come in with four-wheelers or boats or whatever. They've been off-roading. They're, as they wash their vehicles, they wash their ATVs, that mud just goes everywhere. If we had glazing, we looked at putting some transom windows over the open bays, but it would just create an ongoing, constant maintenance issue as those windows became fogged up or splattered with mud and debris. I think it would wind up looking less attractive, honestly, with the glazing than it would without the glazing. So we considered that option, but we feel like it would be a more attractive business without the glazing. Regarding the orientation, this is primarily a safety issue. If you imagine coming through the car wash, this time of night in the winter months, coming out of work and going through the car wash, we want it to feel like a safe, inviting atmosphere where anybody feels comfortable pulling in and washing their vehicle. Having those bays obscured from the public view, obscured from people driving past, just it impacts the comfort level, and we really feel like that's going to have a negative impact on the business and on just the accessibility of this car wash. We don't want to invite negative traffic that would come to an obscured site. We want it to feel open and inviting to all types of the community. We're open to ideas in terms of improving the aesthetic of the car wash. I think the owners are going above and beyond to make a really attractive looking facility. They've done one recently in Lenore that includes the same materials really as what we've proposed here. And they understand that the attractiveness of the car wash improves their bottom line. So we're looking at stone and a natural brick facade. I think it's going to be a really attractive facility, which ultimately helps them. And then there was a third item of parking. There was a parking requirement related to the number of service bays. Again, it's a self-serve car wash. We don't really want parking on site. We don't want people to come there after hours and just park their vehicles and stay there. We want it to be a flow-through car wash with, people would park just to wash their vehicle or to vacuum their vehicle and then move on. People lingering and loitering on the premises just sort of attracts a negative type of traffic, and it's another of those requirements that's kind of the square peg round hole. It doesn't serve the business and doesn't improve the flow on the property. And again, it is a 24-hour business, and so there are plenty of times after hours where the more visible, the better illuminated we can make this site, the more attractive it's going to be, the safer it's going to be, and our customers will be comfortable pulling in and using the facility. Do you have any specific questions about the business or the design?
Judy?
How long have you been planning to do a car wash on this property?
David?
About a year now.
How long have you owned it?
Since March.
Because it was zoned for this way longer than that, so.
Well, and the zoning does permit a,
You know, it's done for a car wash.
It is zoned for a car wash, but you know, you're talking about a square peg in a round hole. Maybe this just isn't the right site.
well, I don't think that's the case. I think it's a great site for a car wash.
It's a wonderful site.
There's as you said, a 21,000 car traffic count, a lot of traffic going up the mountain, up 181, coming back from the lake. I think the location is well suited to a car wash.
Maybe, but maybe not this particular parcel, because I'm not sure that 6 garage doors facing a main gateway into town is the look that we were going for when we developed the River District aesthetic criteria.
Well,
They're there for a reason.
we actually won't have any garage doors. We'll have
Well,
open
open
bays.
bays
Yeah,
is-
yeah. And my take is that, in fact, in the code, it refers to the openness, the transparency of glazing as what's desired by the glazing requirement. And I would argue that the openness of the bays meets that requirement. They are open, there's transparency. It's not a blank wall. And I think that's what that section of the ordinance was meant to address, just a blank brick wall, you know, like at the moldings store next door. I feel like that's what the zoning ordinance was meant to address.
Other questions?
A couple of things, maybe this is given, but would I be correct that from the operational side, the financial side, that each one of these bays has their own coinage intake, that kind of thing? So you've got a security issue about
Yes, sir.
those, is that right?
Yes.
You have coin vaults there for
Can you
every
go
single
to the
bay.
podium,
There's
please?
dollar bill acceptors.
Excuse me, could you go to the podium, please? I can't, it doesn't record.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm David Ross Kluwer Jr.
And your address, please?
510 Mountain View Street, Lenore, North Carolina.
Yeah, welcome here.
Vice President of the Car Wash. As far as the bays go, all of the bays have coin acceptors. All of the bays have dollar bill acceptors and credit card acceptors. That's a huge security risk to try to turn that site from the road that way. If you're going to do that, you're going to invite, well, let me start from the beginning, I guess. Say you have somebody that's a lady in your family that wants to go wash her car at night. Do you think she's going to really feel safe in that bay if you turn it away from the road where she has no safety to be able to be seen from anybody for maybe an attacker or somebody who walks in there and decides to commit some kind of crime against her? She has that consideration that she has to worry about. We have the problems of people breaking into our meter boxes, coin acceptors, dollar bill acceptors. Credit card fraud's on a huge rise. If you turn bays away from the street to where you can't see the credit card acceptors, they can go right in there and put skimmers onto the credit card acceptors. And then we're liable for that. Turning the bays themselves is going to create not only a safety and a security issue, but it's also erasing the car wash's best form of advertisement that the car wash has, namely being able to see it from the road as you go by. If you can't see the services being used, then you probably don't even know it's a car wash. You just think it's a sideways building and nobody's going to wash there. And if the site is indeed zoned for a car wash, then you have to be able to make it an operational facility, and that's the only way to make it operational is to face the road. It would be a hardship for the business to the point to where the business could not continue if you were to turn the business sideways. We could not be able to even pay the note to be able to be there for the bank loan. There's no possible way.
Understand. Pete, you had a question?
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the glazing. You know, I accept the idea that, you know, an open wall or non-wall is equal to a window. I don't have a problem with that. The parking requirement's an interesting comment that you specifically don't want parking. That's an interesting twist. The building orientation, I think, is in conflict with the, you know, we just talked about the 3rd anniversary of doing this code. I mean, you missed about a year and a half, 2 years worth of readings for this. And the whole concept of the more genteel visual aspect of the river district is a problem. And that's, there's the conflict right now, is that building orientation question is, while I understand your security concerns, and just out of curiosity, since I've been in marketing and stuff, I presume there's a car wash association or series of thereof.
Several.
Is there a bunch of marketing studies and stuff that address any of these kind of issues?
As far as marketing for car washes go, the two top marketing abilities for a car wash is both word of mouth and your ability to be seen from a road, and that's why we prefer high-traffic areas that have a 45-mile-an-hour or under speed limit. That way that you can visibly see the wash, and you'll be going slow enough to be looking for the things that are in that area, like the car wash. It's a perfect site for us.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was any studies per se on, orientation versus safety
Well, I mean, it's
in
a
the
simple-
literature type,
it's-
to use the terminology I would.
I would say that it's kind of an assumable fact that if you were to turn those bays sideways, that you are going to invite drug dealers and everybody else to sit in those bays 24/7 as the day goes. I mean, we've been in this business for 46 years, and I've had to deal with all manner of kinds of crazy things that I've seen in these car wash bays, from people passed out with drugs in their car, with their children in the cars and everything else. And I'm not willing whatsoever to do anything to try and put another person's life at risk. And when I've seen these things before, and I know that those things will increase by decreasing the visibility on my lot and increasing the ability to do those nefarious things, I'm not willing to put somebody else's life in jeopardy to turn a building sideways to make it look better, to be honest with you. And I mean, that's just kind of what it boils down to, is we're more concerned about safety than anything when it comes to turning that building, and it is a very large safety concern.
Just another comment or question, I guess, combined. You mentioned you don't want parking.
Parking would then invite loitering, which is going to invite drug
Right.
dealers and everything else to come sit down there, and people that you don't need.
Right, and I totally understand that.
Yeah, there's usually about 2 to 4 parking spaces is what we usually allot per car wash, but I think
Sort of a-
that they ask for 4 per bay.
It's kind of a dry out area, or would you rather have that person stay in the bay and dry out?
Okay, they said that they're willing to put in 16 parking spaces. That'd be several, 8 in the back and several in the front. So if you would like parking spaces is something that we can work with. That's not against the design. We'd more than willing to work with you on parking spaces. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think it comes to the orientation siding of the question more than anything from my perspective to that. And I want to be supportive of business all I can at the same time, and it's not this committee's business to look at your potential profitability or operational piece of that. But, there's already an existing business like this probably within a quarter mile at another intersection. So I'm sure you've taken that into account. That's granted an aging property, but some of those are being rehabbed right now through town all over, to be more competitive, I suppose. But that aside, is there, and I also don't have a problem with the glazing either. I think, you want to keep it clean, maintained, look all the way around, and I appreciate you trying to do that. I just wonder if there's something, we have a sketch here, but I wondered if even that could be flipped from the standpoint of putting the more open, non-automatic bays to the front versus the automatic bays to the back. Does that make any difference at all? Or?
Well, and also, partly to address that concern, we pulled the money changing station that is the entrance to the automatic bays. There's a little kiosk there, so as you pull in, you enter your code or you put money into the car wash. We pulled all that around to the back to try and address that concern. I feel like the ordinance to address vehicular bays, auto bays, was really meant more for mechanics, for repair garages where, you know, you've got a car up on a lift and it's spilling oil or, you know, the transmission's pulled out of it. It's more of an ongoing kind of aesthetic concern, where with the car wash, again, half the time the bays will be empty. Cars won't be parked in there for any length of time. It's more of an ongoing flow-through process. So, you know, it's hard to really speak to the original concern of the ordinance, but I feel like we're addressing it.
I was just thinking, though, if we were to take, for instance, again, looking at this alternates plan consideration to be within our existing code situation, if we were to take the drive-throughs, non-automatic, and put those to the front, we have some view coming up and down the highway as to what's open and what's filled, as to whether or not that is some sort of middle point or not, versus the automatic bays, which may be a little bit more restrictive in view as to from the public going past or not. Again, just taking the orientation and flipping it so the automatic is toward the back of the property rather than to the front of the property as an alternative sketch. Then the other thing I would ask too, and this is just a question maybe as to what we have here. You're going to be next door to a petroleum gate facility, which is convenience. So it's a related type of automotive. You know, I get that.
Yeah.
And to have the security issue, is there a light plan on this as how that might come? I don't really know what that is.
Yeah, each of the vacuum stations will have a 12-foot pole-mounted light, and there are several other taller pole-mounted lights around the rear of the property and at the front. So it will be well illuminated, and there are a couple of building-mounted lights as well. And we've talked about the full cutoff requirement, and we've addressed that.
Well, you have a vested interest, as we do, to not have a unsavory situation where
Right,
people
right.
loiter and stay and that kind of thing. And
And a
certainly,
vested interest to make it an attractive facility.
we
to
appreciate
draw
that very
business.
much.
Yeah, yeah,
As you need it, we appreciate it.
right, yeah.
Anyone else? I have a question about signage, as far as road signage. You've given much consideration to that.
We've talked about it. We're going to submit sign drawings under a separate permit, so they're not part of this package.
Okay. And video security, is that in the realm of possibility?
Very much so.
I mean, is that something you do now at your,
One at all 5 of our locations,
and that's done, what, 24/7?
24/7 and on the internet. We can monitor them from our phones even 24/7.
Okay. I'll make a comment. I would applaud the use of your materials and your design as far as the rustic appearance that would certainly create. I also think of 4 existing car washes within Burke County that are all front-facing the streets, so I'm not terribly inclined to be overly concerned about these bays with those decorative features presented to the street frontage. And I also understand in business, it's either a destination purchase, in other words, you know it's there, you're going to do a particular thing, in this case, wash your car.
Right.
Or if it's oriented right, it can create an impulse action where they say, hey, car wash, I'm going to stop and clean my car.
Right.
So I can appreciate that. I'm going to stop with that. If there's any other questions or comments.
I think it just comes down to the pure aesthetic question, you know. I do appreciate the security concerns, and frankly, that's a significant argument. But the question becomes really in designing the river district and what the city had in mind, it's down to the question of, you know, is this a proper site for a car wash? You know, and I understand location-wise, it is business-wise, commercially, it's a good thing, but the question is aesthetically for what the city is trying to achieve in the river district, is that valid? So,
To me, it's not just a car wash, it's zoned for a car wash, and I appreciate that. My question is, if you knew that that's the way you wanted to orient it and you knew the way you wanted to design it and construct it, then you buy a piece of property where that's possible. You don't buy a piece of property where it's not possible without changing the zoning, which is what you're asking for now. Okay? Go buy the right piece of property for it. There's plenty of high-traffic places where you could go do what you want to do without coming in here and asking us to change something in one of the most high-profile traffic
Right.
areas in Morganton.
Yeah.
That's my problem with it.
Right, and I understand that, and, I wouldn't ask you to make a blanket change to the zoning ordinance. I think the direction that you're going is positive, and I think that it's gonna improve the aesthetic of that district. I think this is just a unique situation. If it were a retail store, if it were an office building, if it were a bank, I think all of these comments would address that, the facade of that bank. But for a car wash, it's just a unique set of circumstances, both in the site safety of the car wash, the use of that car wash, that require, I think this is what the alternative compliance process was created for, to address, to be able to adapt the existing ordinance, which is well-written, to a unique set of circumstances.
But where do we draw the line next time?
Good question.
I mean, if you allow this to be changed, somebody can come in next month and say they want to do this, and it just seems like there's been a lot of work done into this from the aesthetic standpoint in the River District. And if we're just going to say, okay, let's just not really abide by it.
Well, I'll counter that.
Okay.
Because I'm pro-business.
Sure.
The next thing is the fact that the zoning, as it stands today, this is an allowable use in our current zoning. There's no getting around it, period. It's also allowed in the River District overlay. No getting around that. So what we're asking to do is to either address some variances on design within the confines of our ordinance, if you will. And there are two things. I think the glazing intent of the ordinance was for businesses that have people that walk by and look in the windows to see what they're doing. In this case, you got open bays, you don't have windows. As far as the ordinance talking about, or is it listed here? Automobile service bay doors. We don't have service bay doors. They're just open bays. So I think we're dealing with some somatic issues here. So, again, I'll come back to the ordinance, the way it stands with the current zoning. This is an allowable use within the current zoning. And that's what we truly deal with, and whether we want to modify and make certain changes, like in this case, turn the structure sideways to present just a brick view to the street, or to have an open bay that you drive by and look in and see what's going on. That's kind of the issue we're dealing with. So.
And I think this is where, in our early discussions with Philip, of course, when the owners bought the property, they weren't fully aware of all the requirements of the River Overlay District, just because it takes a lot of specialized research to reach that conclusion. But Philip and I talked about some of these concerns, and I think we both struggled with, well, how do we interpret automotive service bay doors? How do we interpret openness versus glazing? And I think it's not a clear-cut change of the zoning ordinance. It's really just an interpretation that we're asking for.
I'll take it one creative step further. What if you put a second floor on top of this structure and they were all office spaces? What would you think about that?
Still facing the wrong direction.
But you got nice glazing, all the glazing you want, and then you've got open bays and outdoors.
I
Still
don't
in the
think
wrong
it's a question
direction.
of glazing, and where I'm wrestling, because I align with you about protecting the aesthetics of the River District. But then if you tell me I'm also next door to a Gate gas station, well, a Gate gas station is not that aesthetic,
Okay.
I mean, that's definitely a non-conforming use. But you can't blame Gate and you can't blame G&G. They've been there for years, okay? You have to start somewhere. My concern is, and again, it's nothing against this particular, business or even endeavor. I have nothing personally against car washes, okay? I have nothing against car washes in the River District. But we have design standards. If your design doesn't fit the standard, then find a piece of property where it does fit, okay? I think you just bought the wrong piece of property.
But I'm really not convinced that what we're proposing are automotive service bay doors. I think this is it's an open bay, much like a carport or like
That's your
a
interpretation.
pull-through. Yes,
Unfortunately, it's our business to do the interpreting,
I
and that's what we're
understand.
trying to do.
right. I'm trying to convince you.
You haven't.
We're working on it. And the owners are open to other ideas that might improve the aesthetic of the property without severely impacting their business to the point that it's just infeasible. We've talked about enhanced exterior lighting, maybe some downlights that, cast light against the stone and against the brick just to enhance the aesthetic of the property. Additional landscaping out front. We're doing the planting that's required by the overlay district and the landscaping boulders, but other ideas that might enhance the aesthetic without really forcing them to totally change the character of their business. So we're open to other ideas that would improve our chances.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, we'll bring it back to the commission. And it's time to either make a motion, and anyone want to entertain a motion to approve this request, which is for 2 amendments to the current ordinance.
It's 3, isn't it? It's glazing, parking, okay, we're saying parking's not an issue.
No,
It's just glazing and orientation.
Glazing and orientation, correct.
Do we not have, is there not an open bay right beside of this property that Gate has a,
There is a current drive-through there at
A single
the
unit.
Gate station, which would be adjacent to this location.
and I know that's grandfathered, but still yet, we've got one place here and then nobody else can do anything.
And I don't see Gate going anywhere anytime soon or in the near, and you've got cars going in and out there. Same
I
situation.
do have one question there. In the design of the building, the center where all the mechanical things are, that is a closed aesthetic from the road, is that correct? Is there a particular reason why it has to be there instead of on the end where the entrance is? Wouldn't that push everything a little further to the left and wouldn't be so visible?
I want to see it's better looking in the center, you know.
Well, it's-
For,
But you can't see it from the center, see the entrance.
See, here's, you know,
He's on a different.
we have to keep the equipment room in the middle so that the soaps can equally be distributed to either side, to the self-service bays and to the other washes. If you were to put it on one side or the other, it'll detrimentally affect the time that the soaps take to get out to their appropriate bays. And especially for the automatics, that'll cause the time for them, especially for the soaps to load into the tubes, to nearly double and probably double the time that it takes to wash a car.
Okay.
Did that answer your question? Wait,
Yes, sure did. Thank you.
and I'll come back to the commission. Is there anyone that'd like to make a motion to approve this request with the suggested design change?
I'm just not prepared to approve it blanket with all of those three. I'm okay with the glazing, I'm okay with, certainly lighting improvements, that sort of thing. I just think we put this in there 3 years ago, and I appreciate that people purchase land, and that's terrible, the situation. I feel like there can be some accommodation perhaps in the operation. I think one of the biggest things is certainly you want to have visibility as to whether or not, if you're pulling in on a whim, that something's available for you. And I feel like probably that that can be done with traffic flow going left and right. Quite frankly, you got 20,000 cars out there. You better keep your eyes on the road. As people move from one lane to another out there, or prepare to turn in or off, from all the considerations through that. I think there is the alternative placement so that the bays are not directly. I understand the business reasons for that. I'm a business person. I understand that part of it. But we've got something we put in place 3 years ago. I'm all for any accommodation we can get. If we can flip the alignment, then great. God bless you. Welcome to town. But I just have a problem with that orientation as per the arrangement. So if you want to carve out part of the agreement, I'm okay with that from the standpoint of the glazing and other consideration. But I think as has been stated here with a couple people, the actual orientation of the bay is the sticking issue with me anyway.
Okay. Anyone else? Maybe I can just go through and canvass here. What are your feelings about this, Claude?
It's just hard for me to say no whenever there's a place right beside of it.
I got that.
That's my biggest thing is.
Pete?
It is a like business, I understand that. And I think it will be done nicely, whatever it is. I just have an problem with the orientation of the bay, as per our plan.
I'm going to line with Claude. I think it's an attractive building, or as attractive as you can make a car wash. Yeah, it's not talking about the Museum of Modern Art, but I think I'd have to go with allowing it to have the bays face the road.
Okay. Wait.
Well, I'm assuming that from a business standpoint, being that's 181 and the gateway to the mountains and so forth, that you have 4 bays for self-service and 2 for automatic. So that definitely, your traffic you're trying to attract there is more of that than it is the single car wash. Okay, so I think we're on the same path there. I think what I'm hearing here from everybody is we put 14 months worth of work into all the river districts and all the different ordinances and so forth in town. It took a long time, a lot of effort, and a lot of the city's money to bring in the people that suggested what we do there and how we build this thing. And we all went through years of what Morganton should look like in 2030. And there was a lot of time and effort and local people, volunteers put into that. So in looking back at all of it, we've done all this work and accomplished it. This doesn't exactly fit what we want to do. It fits what you want to do greatly. And I see a real need out there in a particular area, and I know why you want to go to that particular area. I wish there's some way we could work this out. I think, to me, the pictures that are in front of you right now, I would think the automatic bay would look better on the left because that's where your entrance is than the 4 self-service bays that are on the right. But you've mentioned security, and for a lot of reasons, I don't know for what other reasons you would want to have your self-service be the biggest thing, other than the fact that the market that you're attracting is going to have boats and 4-wheel drive and a lot of mud issues. So I'd like to sit on our side and say that we can keep the aesthetics of what we've worked so hard to plan together. But at the same time, I think there's a need for what you guys want to present out there. And I think you can make a go at it, even though we have a lot of car washes in Morganton. A lot is changing in that industry. There is a lot of people who want to self-wash their cars now because of all the brushes and all the impact it has on the condition of your car. Mine, I have that same problem. I'm getting a lot of swirls. If you got a black car, you got a lot of trouble.
Just trying to bring something, a really whole new, business into Morganton. You know, I've got a place, I'm on Lake James, I've had since 1980, I'm from Burke County.
Can you go to the podium, please?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm David Kluwer.
And your
I'm,
address,
pres- I live at 2446 Thornfield Drive in Lenore. I'm president of Bonnie Miss Car Wash, you know. My dad started this and I did in 1969, and we feel, there's a great need in here. I mean, we're building something we feel that's really nice out there, and I wish we could find something, a happy medium here somewhere, you know. It really concerns us, you know, with that, you know, we have to turn it the other way there, you know. If there's something there, are you saying that you would like the automatics on the other side?
Well, that's where your entrance is, and I think that would be,
Would that make a difference if we moved that to the other side or something?
well, you got 26 feet I show in there.
We've got, I mean, there's some things we could do if we had to.
They want it this way.
If this would make you happier, I mean, I'm willing to work, we're really trying to see what we do, because
They
we
don't
really
want
want
this-
to be
They don't
here.
want this orientation this way. They want the
Yeah,
orientation that
they
way.
want it like here,
Yeah.
facing the road. So I'm thinking, instead of, they have them presently right now down at this end, the automatics, but if to move them over here, and then you got the central mechanical building in the center, this is the part that you're going to see if they do it the way they've got it written up on our chart here, the one that's turned in your pamphlet. You got the automatics down the end, which is hid behind all the landscaping, and that would be more attractive from the road than the single base.
Okay.
And there's a narrow, the entrance is not in the center of the property. It favors from the road, it would be from the left side. Would that entrance still be the same, Philip?
Do you appreciate or understand what he's
Yeah,
suggesting?
to move the automatics on the other side or get away from the gate, there's no problem with that. We could put that over there.
Well, when you turn it the way you want to do, when you do that, so you have a 24-foot entrance, and I'm assuming. Philip, that
30, well, we have a
the same?
36-foot entrance. The
entrance from the
DOT gave us
highway
36.
Would be the same, even if they move the building around, I mean, this way here?
Yes, that would that wouldn't change.
Yeah, well, that's gonna, if you do that, then, you're gonna see just a little bit of the automatic, which would start here and go this way, which is like our plan that you have here. This is what they want. And so to move these over to here, the mechanical, which has a covered front on it to the road, would be in here, and then your other four would be down here. So you wouldn't have as much exposure
Okay?
on.
We're flexible on that. You know, we turn it the other way, but I understand what you're saying, but that could be done easily.
The landscape would cover the.
Yes.
The single wash.
Sure.
That's just a suggestion. I wouldn't
Be
feel
more
so
than
bad.
happy to do that. I don't think Jesse'd have any plans with that. We'd have any problems with that whatsoever. Just switch it to the other side and leave the 4 bays on the upper end.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Bill. Do you have any other closing comments there for you? No. Rick?
I think our issue is which way he's gonna turn that car wash. I think that's our primary issue, and the glazing I'm fine with. I think, and you got gate there, that's probably always gonna be a service station.
Yes.
I don't have a problem in turning them facing the road. I mean, I think this is what the process is for, to look at
We
each
appreciate that.
individual
We really do.
situation, and I'm fine with it.
Okay, Mark?
I just can't get to the point of accepting, changing the position to face the street. I'm just kind of going back to what White said. I think it's just, there's a lot of hours and man-hours put into this plan, a master plan, not just for Green Street, but for a master plan of Morganton. And I think the biggest thing is when you start making changes like this, of all the work that was put in, and then we just say, well, you know what, we're just going to make this change on this. It's just, where do you draw the line on the next project that comes in? I'm just, you know, and you can say gates next door, and I understand that too, I really do, and it's there, but it was done before the plan was put in place. And, you know, I've been to some towns in the city limits where they've allowed metal buildings and putting little stores in them. Well, then they go back and they change it, and somebody comes in and says, well, you know, why can't we go back and, you know, you get my point here. And it's like, you know,
What would you like to see there?
yeah.
I reckon is the question I would pose to you. What would you like to see there?
Yeah, but I just can't get past to reposition the building and facing the street.
Okay.
Okay.
Judy, do I need to ask you your comments?
Yeah, I just, it's the building orientation, it's just, it's a no-go for me.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone on this commission would like to make a motion? to
I'll
move
make a
forward?
motion that we put it facing the street and putting it to the side, like you were talking about.
Doing a flip on the design.
Flip on in on the side.
Okay.
There, we've got already a present one there. This is zoned for a car wash, and now we're saying that we can't do it. You can't do it. We want it done our way. I know there's a lot of work went in on that, so somewhere there's got to be somewhere that we got to give and take a little bit.
Gotcha. All
So
right,
I'll
I
make
have
a
a
motion.
motion on the table. Do I have a second to that?
Not sure I understand the motion totally.
All right, the motion is to move forward with the suggested alternate changes proposed, and to take the design where the automated washes be flipped to the opposite side, and the 4 manual bays are toward the gate side. Is that with, are you with on that?
Understand?
Any further questions or discussions? First and second, call for the question. All in favor of moving forward, say aye, and raise your hand. And those opposed? So we got 5, 4, and 3 against. This will go to the city council
Yes, sir.
next month in February, and a meeting for that is, I'll get to it in a second here.
I appreciate that. And I think you'll be really impressed with what we're doing. We're
Well,
trying to bring something.
in closing, I would-
Really nice in Morganton. I think that everybody's going to be really pleased with what we're doing. You know, we've been in it for 46 years. We've got some nice locations and a great business lore, and we want to do the same thing to Morganton. That's all we're trying to do.
Well,
And we do appreciate everything
I
y'all do
think
for
we
us.
need to be fair somewhere, and I don't know where
Well,
it's
we
at.
appreciate your attendance. The meeting for
Appreciate
the
your
city
input.
council will be 8 February, and we'd hope that the 3 of you will be back to visit with them.
We will.
And we encourage you to really appreciate the sensitivity of that river district.
We
and I
understand
think
that.
you're showing the
wholeheartedly.
intent.
That's why it's a different district over there, and the traffic's over there. Bill. I love to see what you're doing. Like I said, I've had a place up in Lake James since 1980, but my dad was back up. He's from up in the Oak Hill section, the Clour's up in there. And, you know, I'll be moving to Lake James soon. We're going to remodel our house, Holiday Shores. And we love this community. I think you're doing great things in Burke County. I would love to see what you're doing in Morganton.
We'd like
We
to-
love, we eat over here a lot. We come over here quite a bit. So
We'd
we
like to welcome
appreciate
you
your
back
input.
to Morganton.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that's what, the 8th? Did you say the 8th?
8th of February,
8th of
Thursday.
February. Thank you, guys.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stand corrected. I stand corrected. It's the first Monday in February,
First, the 5th.
the 5th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Again, thank you. Is there anything else for, to come before the planning commission? Other than wishing Jackie, our able-bodied recorder, staff secretary, a happy birthday as of tomorrow.
You're 39 again, 39 again this year, right?
Congratulations. All right, hearing we have no other business, I'll move we adjourn. Thank you.